Let's rewind the clock just a little bit, back to 2020. Amidst all the global uncertainty, the Indian government launched something massive, its new national education policy. And believe me, this wasn't just some minor update, it was a truly transformative vision for the entire country's future. And right at the heart of this huge policy was a very powerful, very public promise. The pledge was for the central government and the states to finally join forces and hit a critical funding target, investing 6% of GDP into education. But the policy wasn't just about money. It completely blew up the old 10+2 system that many of us grew up with. In its place came this new 5+3+3+4 structure. It was designed to be way more intuitive, bringing preschools into the formal system with play-based learning, and then adding things like vocational skills and even internships as students get older. Which brings us to the central mystery of this whole thing. With such a bold vision and a crystal clear promise, why, all these years later, has that funding goal remained just out of reach? The target itself couldn't be simpler. Dedicate 6% of the nation's entire gross domestic product to public education. But the reality? Well, for more than a decade, India's spending has been kind of stuck, just hovering around 4.6%. That's quite a way off from that ambitious 6% mark. Now, you might be thinking, hang on, is 4.6% really that bad? I mean, it is, after all, technically within the range that UNESCO recommends for developing countries. And if you look at it on paper, India's spending percentage is actually higher than some huge economies like China. But that comparison, it's pretty misleading. Their education systems are already well established, and their populations of school-age kids are actually shrinking. India's situation is the complete opposite. It has this massive youth population. We're talking 68% of people in the working age bracket. And it has this huge, ambitious goal, become a developed economy by 2047. You simply can't achieve that without investing in your future workforce, today. Heck, even regional peers like Bhutan and the Maldives are already spending over 5%. But here's the kicker. This 6% target isn't new at all. It was first recommended as a bare minimum way back in 1966 by the Kothari Commission. And it's been repeated in every single major education policy since then. That fact alone makes the failure to actually hit the target even more puzzling. Okay, so what is the holdup? Why hasn't India been able to cross that 6% line? Let's unpack the reasons, because it's a bit complicated. The first reason is what you could call a paradox. It's not that the government isn't spending more actual money. In absolute terms, the education budget has been going up. The problem is that India's GDP, the whole economy, is growing just as fast, if not faster. So as a percentage of that rapidly expanding economy, the spending looks flat. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. Second, you've got the government's constant juggling act. There's a limited pool of money, and so many urgent needs are competing for it. Defense, healthcare, new roads, social welfare. In that intense competition, a long-term investment like education, where the returns aren't immediate, often gets pushed down the priority list. The third reason adds another layer of complexity. In India, education is a concurrent subject. And what that means is that the responsibility for it is shared between the national government in the center and all the individual state governments. And this, right here, is where things get really uneven. Just take a look at these numbers. The national average per person spent on education is about 4,600 rupees. But that single number hides a massive disparity. A state like Goa spends over 17,000 rupees. But then you have states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, which, by the way, are home to the most young people in the country, and they spend even less than the national average. And finally, there's the investment horizon. Think about it from a political perspective. When a government builds a new road or a bridge, the results are immediate. You can see it, touch it, drive on it. But the return on investment from education, the real impact of that better schooling, might not be truly visible for 15 years, when that child finally enters the workforce as a skilled adult. This long delay creates a really dangerous, vicious cycle. Underfunding leads to a less skilled workforce. That, in turn, hurts national productivity. Lower productivity means lower economic growth and lower tax revenues, which leaves, you guessed it, even less money available for education in the future. It's a loop that's hard to break.
So, does all this mean India is just doomed to miss this critical target forever? Well, not necessarily. There is a possible path forward, and it's an ambitious one.
A report from EY suggests that the real solution might lie in boosting the government's overall income. Right now, total government revenue from all sources is about 21% of GDP. The key idea is to significantly increase that slice of the total economic pie. Just imagine for a moment if government revenues could be raised to, say, 29% of GDP. That 8% increase would be absolutely transformative. Even after using some of it to strengthen the government's finances, it could unlock about 5.5 percentage points that could be dedicated specifically to education and health. That right there is the window of opportunity. But to fix that huge state-level spending gap we talked about, the central government would also need to step in with something called equalization transfers. This is basically extra funding given to the lower capacity states specifically to help them catch up, to ensure a child's quality of education isn't determined by where they happen to live.
And there are some genuinely hopeful signs this could happen. India's tax-to-GDP ratio just hit a 15-year high, and it's projected to keep rising. This creates more fiscal space, more breathing room in the budget, meaning the money for these big investments might finally be within reach. And the potential payoff for this kind of investment, it is absolutely huge. We don't even have to guess. We can just look at the playbook from countries like Germany and South Korea. They rebuilt their entire economies by investing heavily in education. They treated it not as a cost, but as an economic lifeline. The result? They created highly skilled populations and built global reputations for quality and innovation that are still paying off today. So in the end, hitting that 6% target isn't just about fulfilling a promise that's decades old. It's about making a deliberate choice to invest in a more prosperous, more innovative future. We can see the path forward, and we know the immense potential that's just waiting to be unlocked. So the real question isn't whether we should do it, but simply, why aren't we doing more?